Parental discretion is advised because you're about to see some naked kings on the board. These were the opening moves, right, of this absolutely wild game. Starts as a Nimzo Indian defense. This is Vincent Keymer with white, young German strong player against Wei Yi, Chinese player, won Tata Steel earlier this year, very strong, especially at faster time controls, and it's a brand new tournament, the Superbet Rapid and Blitz, and this is round one of this rapid section. Magnus is playing, he's in action with Gukesh today. I'll bring you that later, so do please subscribe if you haven't already. Never miss a beat, become a grandmaster soon. Now E3 was played. We're going to rattle through these opening moves. A slightly modest setup here, nice and solid. This game kicks into life in about 10 moves time, so we're going to keep going here. This is how the players develop their pieces. Always get your bits out. Now we see takes on c4, bishop recaptures, and e5. Nice break, going for some central play. We get a3, the bishop retreats here, and now there's a load of pressure on the center, right? The king's not castled, but Vincent just goes bishop a2, says take, do your worst, I don't care, I'll recapture with the knight. And that's what Wei Yi should do. That's the top way to play. Or a6, quite natural as well, take the b5 square. But he plays this weird move, bishop to b8, and it starts these absolute fireworks. I haven't seen a game this crazy and tactical in, I don't know, years. A long time, right? And shout out to those in the comments who drew my attention to this. Really helpful when you highlight these great games. Hard to keep up with everything when you're a wannabe grandmaster criticising far stronger players on a daily basis, as I do. Now we see castles. h6 played, knight to h4, and here's the thing. Maybe Wei Yi was dropping the bishop back to set up some bishop queen battery or something, go for an attack, but he is the one now getting attacked. There's a threat of knight g6 because this pawn pinned to the king. You'd then win an exchange, of course, so black moves the rook, makes room, but it should go to e8. It goes to d8. I mean, this is the stuff that the Silicon Overlord immediately sees as a problem. The evaluation bar pooping its pants. And the reason for this is that when knight g6 comes, the queen sits best on d8. But it's now forced forward into d6. And it allows this amazing tactical shot out of nowhere. Vincent finds it. These young players are sharp, right? Can you guess the move? Very well done if you can, and you know, if you haven't seen it, doesn't count if you've already seen the game, right? The move played here is knight to b5. What a thunderbolt. Two knights on the board hanging. I mean, this one's not. The pawn is pinned. But the queen's actually in jail. Checkmated. It's got no available squares where it won't be taken. So this is forced. And here's the follow-up point. We love to see it. Harry Potter-esque, sacrifice the queen. And the reason this wasn't captured is because now the rook takes with check. Obviously these supporting the attack, and if you drop with the knight or queen, well, the rook recaptures supported by the knight. It's great for white. So king h7, natural. Now there's not actually a checkmate or the king takes the knight. So bishop takes first, support the knight, threaten the Arabian mate, and now black's got to do this craziness to defend. Rook takes, and here's the point. Give back the queen, then take the rook, but white doing great here. Only a pawn ahead, but an absolute dominant position. Bishop pair, power, power, power. So coming back here, don't touch the queen. Instead, queen b6 played. Best move, covering the rook, which is unprotected otherwise. Now we see a check chucked in. I mean, let's ignore the bar too much or we'll be here all day. We get this check. The king moves to f8 to attack the knight. Also keep an eye on the f7 pawn, but it's actually a mistake because you're stepping onto this diagonal. The engine wants to go bishop b4 immediately here, but Vincent starts with knight to f5 first, setting up similar ideas, but now it's not as precise as we're going to see. Still, you don't want to take the queen. This time the problem after rook takes with check is that after knight e8 comes, now the bishop sides down the open diagonal towards the king. I told you this needs a PG rating over here. The king's exposed, and after it sidesteps, we take with check. King h7, and again the bishop's crashing through. More than enough compensation for the queen. Huge attack still rumbling on. So don't touch that queen. g6 was played instead, is the best move, and now after check, king sidestepping, knight checking again, you've given the king a new square. On g7, it gratefully tucks itself into bed, but it's short-lived, because queen c2 comes, extricating itself from the enemy lines, and now there's a ton of attacking ideas that this sets up, but there's nothing Wei Yi can actually do to defend. I mean, I never explored knight f8 as a defensive idea, but let's assume it sucks because the engine's not giving it as any of the top 3 lines, and the third line here is plus 3.5 for white. The only way for black to stay in the game is with e takes on d4, creating some counterplay ideas, and now Vincent finds the best move, crashes through on f7. I mean, already the guys are down to 5 minutes-ish, they're getting some time back. It's like a blitz game, and we're on move 23, and the position is wild, of course. Now, what's the big idea? Well, if takes, the queen crashes through, and this is game over. Not going to show tons of lines. It's plus 11, line number 1 with king e6. It's mate in 4 with king f8. The next move being knight f5, opening the bishop. More than enough pieces in the attack. So what do we see played? d3. It's an excellent move by Wei Yi, and the pawn was not captured. Or knight e5 comes, forking these two, and also opening the rook on the queen. I'm laughing because this game's just hurting my head, and no doubt yours already, and it's only, what, move 24. So this isn't playable. It's just not the line to go down. Don't touch the pawn. Queen b3 best, hold on to the bishop, and now Wei Yi carries on with his idea. Knight e5, it's absolutely atrocious. He should go and wallow in a corner and beat himself in a stick for not being better than this. Call yourself a super GM. You should go d2. What a patzer. How can you go knight e5 here? Give white knight d5 as a great move, apparently. Well, bishop g6 played, also a good move. Hang on, why not capture that? Isn't that a free piece? Surely we've got to explore that. Well, yes it is, but knight f5 check comes. King now backpedaling, queen invading. Again, we're not going to show every single line. This rook can come, defend the mate here, but white has enough pieces to join the party to technically be better. But, of course, if you misstep, black unravels, well, you're a piece down or whatever the hell material's down, you know, you're doing well, you're struggling, let's say. So, d2 was played instead. Now, this is really good for white if you go rook c5, of course, obvious move. There is a hint of sarcasm there. Now, you can also go rook cd1, but maybe it's a bit passive. What does Vincent do? We'll stick with that. He takes this pawn, he's like, get rid of your counterplay. I don't want it. I'm even going to give an entire piece. But here's my point. I've now cleared the way for my queen to join the attack on these light squares. This is where I really want to try and get you. Obviously the knight's currently covering, but this is the general theme. And after knight c4, good move, threatening to crash through on b2, you know, converging. Well, now we see some of Vincent's point. He checks from f5. The king drops back to h8. And now he plays the move of rook f to d1. He could have also captured here immediately, but he doesn't go for it. Why doesn't Wei Yi take this pawn? Well, then Vincent's ideas come to fruition. The queen and bishop form the battery. There's deadly things lined up. The rooks are in position. The knight, there's a bunch of pawns avalanching maybe one day. Okay, different game. Instead, we see takes with check. It is a good move because after rook recaptures, finally you develop the minor pieces off the back rank, open up this rook here, and now after knight takes on h6 with check, we see rook f8 played to cover this stuff. It's hard keeping up with all the lines, as you can imagine here. Still this pawn not touched. Knight f5 from Vincent. Now the knight crashes through on b2, and we're just into a scramble here. Vincent's got about 10 seconds. Wei Yi 30. They are getting some time back, but they're not going to find the best moves. The knight hits the rook, so Vincent moves it. Stronger was queen b4, counter attack on the rook. But okay, rook c1 played, knight back to c4, and this is a nice move. a4. If you take, this one's dropping, of course. Now a6, knee-jerk reaction, right? But then rook takes on c4. There's an undefended queen. Absolutely wild game. Rook g8 played instead by Wei Yi. He's looking for attacking ideas, does some defensive work too. And now we see a takes on b5. The knight is loose. Knight d2 hits the queen. Maybe it's coming here as well. This pawn's now pinned. Strongest move for white is queen to f7, but queen b4 played, looking for some check stuff. Maybe you invade here, maybe you take this knight right, not d3. Very open position, no outposts for any of these minor pieces, well at least none that they're actually occupying. You know, you'd love some solid control over d4, and so it's just so hard for human players to keep control. Wei Yi takes on b1, and now Vincent, feeling frisky, must have just been like, right, I'm going to make this game as nuts as I possibly can, as if it's not been crazy enough. So instead of just recapturing the knight, which he should do, he goes knight e7 to hit this rook here. Just crazy. This one's of course trapped, or is it? You can actually go knight c3, save it, supported. If white executes their threat, then you check, you pick up here, and it's black that's doing really well. But it was missed. Wei Yi goes rook g4, hits the queen, it takes on b1, bang, back onto the light squares. Yes, white is a minor piece down here, let's not forget, but 3 pawns for that piece, so it is a rough balance. Hang on, only 2 pawns for the piece. We see takes with check. Why wasn't this captured? Well, then there's queen d6 check, and you pick up the knight here. This game is something else. So king f1 was played, queen e6, hits the knight. Love it when I can explain a 1-move threat. Rook c8 check, you can't take, of course. The knight supports that rook. We get king g7, knight f5 check, supported by the queen from afar. I mean, these pieces here just split like moons randomly orbiting a planet. No sense or reason. So hard to keep control. Wei Yi steps into a discovered check, obviously, as you do. Knight d4, discovered check, winning the queen, or is it? Queen e4 comes. Finally, some pieces leaving the board. We've all got a headache. But g3, there's still more tactics in the air. No respite, and that bishop's trapped. That's why Wei Yi takes. He does it with the knight, retains his bishop. Good idea, so that it can get back and support the other side of the board. Rook a8, going after the pawn. It pushes, and after all of this absolute madness, here Vincent emerges a pawn ahead. Can he make any progress? This is move 51. It goes to move 130. We're going to go to an interlude. Go and grab an ice cream or something like you would at the cinema. No, I'm just kidding. So let's crack on here. We're going to rattle through these moves. Obviously, Vincent going to try and get the e-pawn rolling at some point. They're making some moves here, gaining some time back on the clock, trying to then make headway. Don't blunder a piece. That's the main order of the day. But Wei Yi with the difficult task. He's the one on the defensive. He's the one under pressure all game. Let's backtrack. Vincent goes king g5, leaving the defense with the king here, and Wei Yi gives up bishop for pawn. Now the reason he's done this is a technical draw, right? Imagine the rooks leave the board. You can't checkmate just with a knight. Unless your opponent is very obliging, then maybe you technically can from memory. But anyway, not in normal circumstances. So now Vincent just begins the torture on Wei Yi. You know, they literally start a game of mercy. You know, when you have to get your opponent's fingers and try and bend them back. They can't be separated. Then they go to arm wrestle. Vincent really turning on the heat, off the board and on the board. Still can't be split, so they start a massive game of rock, paper, scissors. They're moving these pieces around the board, trying to win at rock, paper, scissors at the same time. Incredible multitasking, but they start getting mixed up. One of them's going on the beat of 3, the other's going on the beat of 4. What's the actual rules? Arbiter comes over, gets out the hand handbook for rock, paper, scissors can't be agreed upon, so they abandon that. They get back to just the chess only here. We're going to keep going. We're on move 110. They're considering a chess boxing match just to try and split them here, because still the game is going on the board, right? It's going on and on. We're at move 120. We're almost there because we're way past the 50 move rule. You know, you can claim a draw if no pawns have moved and nothing's changed on the board after 50 moves. Finally, on move 130, sanity prevails, and the draw is agreed. Oh, what a game that was between these two guys. I hope you enjoyed. Do subscribe, because I'm bringing you Magnus versus Gukesh later. Really keen to see how that one will play out, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.